Hi, friends. I'm Colleen Dieter, landscape consultant, certified arborist, and founder of atxgardens.com. Welcome to the ATX Gardens podcast, where every other week I share simple, timely tips to help your garden thrive. Whether you're a seasoned green thumb or just getting started, you'll learn exactly what to do in your Central Texas garden right now. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and find even more gardening resources at atxgardens.com. Hey there. Thanks for joining me today for episode 4 of the ATX Gardens podcast, airing on October 30th, 2025. I'm Colleen Dieter, landscape consultant at atxgardens.com. And today's episode is all about what to do in the first half of November. But before we get to our gardening to-do list, this episode is sponsored by my landscape consulting business, atxgardens.com. I help my customers by alleviating their anxieties about their yards. During a consultation, you can ask me anything about what to plant, how to care for your soil, tree problems, lawn maintenance, anything you can think of. This week, I met with Sally in Travis Country. She has 2 dogs in a very shady yard, and she wants to turn her backyard into a peaceful oasis for lounging and entertaining. And she was also wondering where she could locate a vegetable garden. So I suggested some redesign, changing the position of her planting areas and adding some pathways to destinations and some designated spaces for her dogs. We also talked about changing the type of furniture that she has for lounging so that it takes up a little less space and there will be a better kind of flow of walkway traffic through the yard. So I can answer all kinds of questions like that. And if you have similar questions to what Sally had, make an appointment with me today at atxgardens.com. So in general, for the fall, again, like I repeated in the last couple episodes, do not fertilize your plants right now. The fertilizer is going to stimulate growth, and we need the plants to slow down and not actively grow at this time of year because they're getting ready for winter. And we don't want any new growth that is not hardened off yet to be so vulnerable to cold weather. This time of year, using liquid humate or compost tea is something that's really good to use instead of fertilizer right now. And you can visit atxgardens.com for a compost tea recipe. And also there's an Amazon affiliate link to buy liquid humate on Amazon, and I receive commissions for those sales. And now let's talk about our woody plants, so all the trees and shrubs. And November is perfect time for planting and transplanting woody plants, trees, shrubs, and vines, including those with fall color. Planting now gives the plants an opportunity to get settled in through the whole winter and spring, and they'll be nice and established before summer heat sets in. I know a lot of us don't think of Austin as a place with good fall color from trees, but Austin could have really good fall color if there was better tree diversity in our urban forest. Some really good native trees that are not often planted have great fall color, including rusty blackhaw viburnum, which is my favorite of the small trees, possum haw holly, Texas ash, and flame leaf sumac are all good small and medium-sized trees that provide fairly reliable fall color. So check those out if you're thinking about planting trees. There's always room for more small to medium-sized trees in our landscapes. At least that's what I like to tell myself. November kicks off the season when the deer are growing their antlers, and their new antlers have velvet on them. And the deer are trying to get that velvet off of their antlers. And so they will rub their antlers on new trees, on little trees, ones that you may have newly planted or are growing up on their own that you may want to preserve. And when they rub their antlers on the trees, that can cause severe damage or even kill a small tree. And they are particularly attracted to trees with smooth bark, like crepe myrtles and palo verdes and our native Texas persimmons and all the fruit trees, Mexican plums, all those trees that have really smooth bark. So you're going to need some trunk protection if you live in an area where there's deer and your property is not fenced off from deer. You need to protect those trees from now through the whole winter, pretty much until February. They're going to be rubbing their antlers on stuff. So check out the trunk protectors that I recommend. There's a link to them on Amazon in the show notes. In November, many of the shade trees are going to lose their leaves. And this week, a customer asked me why the leaves on his pecan trees looked so bad. And I told him, keep in mind, it's really normal for tree leaves to look bad in the fall because the trees know they're just getting ready to lose them. And so it's okay if you see some spots or little tears or chunks taken out of the leaves at this time of year. Don't worry. It's kind of normal. Also, keep in mind that pecan and walnut trees are typically the first ones to lose their leaves in the fall. And there's other trees that hold their leaves a lot longer, like red oaks and Shumard oaks. They don't lose their leaves really until the end of December. And it sort of depends on how windy it is. If you're new to Texas, you might not know that one of the most common trees in our urban forest is the live oak. And they keep their leaves all winter and then drop them in mid-March. Trees like these are called semi-evergreen. Anakawas and Monterey oaks are also semi-evergreen trees. As the leaves are falling off your shade trees, keep as many of them as you can and use them as mulch around your existing trees, in your planting areas, around fruit trees, and in your vegetable garden. They will decompose and feed your plants. If you have lots of acorns, walnuts, and other native tree fruits, please share them with Central Texas Seed Savers and Tree Folks through our Seed to Tree partnership. Tree Folks will use the seeds in their Seeds to Trees native nursery, and the seedlings will be planted during their reforestation projects. Learn more in the show notes about how you can participate in the Seed to Tree partnership. You've got to wait just a little bit longer to prune your trees. Once the weather turns colder and your trees have lost their leaves, then it's a good time to do some pruning. I will revisit that topic in future episodes. Okay, and now we're getting toward the middle of the podcast, and it's time for a word from our sponsors. And since I'm still just getting started, there's only one sponsor, and it's me. Hi, all. This is Colleen Dieter with atxgardens.com. I give plenty of garden advice on my podcast, but there's nothing like meeting in person to get the best information for your plants and landscape. And that's what I can do for you. Visit atxgardens.com. As a certified arborist and professional gardener, I've been giving advice to do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. I help my customers by alleviating their anxieties about their yards. Visit atxgardens.com to book a consultation with me. During the consultation, we'll walk through your yard together and answer all of your questions. Also at atxgardens.com, you can shop Colleen's favorite things. That's garden apparel, tools, and books that I often mention during the podcast. From trees to vegetables to wildflowers, I'm here to help. Make an appointment at atxgardens.com. Now, moving on to one of my favorite subjects, and that is fruit trees. So for the first half of November, the fruit trees are starting to lose their leaves. Make sure you pick up any fruit that's fallen on the ground, even if it's all shriveled up and dried up. It's important to pick up as many fruits off the ground as you can and try to remove fruit tree leaves as they fall on the ground, especially from domestic fruit trees like peaches, apples, plums, and pears. I'm always encouraging folks to keep other leaves from other types of trees, like shade trees and native trees. But the domestic fruit trees need to be kept clean, and you have to pick up those leaves and fallen fruits because they can harbor insects and diseases that can reinfect your trees next spring. So try to pick up as much of that debris as is possible. You don't have to pick up every single last leaf. Just try to get as much as you can. Now, I was talking a little bit earlier about fall color, and I have to say I've found that the fruit trees have some of the best fall color in general, including my giant Fuyu Asian persimmon, which is bearing a very heavy harvest right now of delicious fruit, too. Remember to gather up tree leaves from your landscape, spread them around in the orchard, and they'll add valuable organic matter to the soil around your fruit trees. November is a good time to plant containerized palm and stone fruits. Palm fruits are the ones that have cores, like apples and pears, and the stone fruits are the ones that have pits, like peaches and plums. It's also a good time for containerized grape planting and for the persimmons that I mentioned earlier. By containerized, I mean trees that come in pots. Later in December and January, you can plant bare root fruit trees, and I will definitely talk about that in future episodes. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss it. For your palm and stone fruits, when your trees drop most of their leaves and they're almost bare or newly bare, spray them with copper soap to control bacterial canker and fungal diseases. If you have pears and apples, they are susceptible to a bacterial infection called fire blight, and spraying with copper soap can help prevent that. A lot of the stone fruits get canker diseases where you'll see kind of like jelly coming out of the bark. That's really, really common. And the copper soap can help prevent those diseases and prevent them from spreading and can help extend the life of your tree. So the time to spray is when they drop most of their leaves. Now, moving on to perennials and bulbs. The first half of November is really pushing the limits for planting warm season perennials and ornamental grasses. Those are the plants that typically grow up from the ground in the spring. They bloom in summer and fall, and then the tops die in the winter, and then they grow back again in the spring. Examples include lantanas, indigo spires, salvia, shrimp plants, 4 o'clocks. We have a lot of our favorite plants in Austin are warm season perennials. So you need to avoid planting them now, okay? If you have them already, get them in the ground as soon as possible. Otherwise, wait until spring to plant new warm season perennials and most ornamental grasses. Now, cool season perennials and certain types of bulbs are really good to plant in November. So those are the plants that have the opposite life cycle of the typical warm season perennials. So these are some of my favorite plants, like columbines, spiderworts, and lyre-leaf sage. They grow back from their roots in the fall, and then they're green all winter, and they bloom in early spring. And then they go dormant in the summer. The tops of the plants die in the summer, and then in the fall, they do it all over again. All right, and they typically grow in the shade under trees that lose their leaves, and that way they can take advantage of the extra sun in the winter time, and then they go dormant in the summer when it's really dry and they're fully shaded. So they typically can tolerate freezing temperatures, so you can plant them now. And I mentioned bulbs a minute ago too, and there's certain types of bulbs that can be planted in November, including Dutch irises, which I particularly like, leucojums, which are also known as snowdrops. I have the giant type in my front yard and I really like them. Rain lilies and iphions are all bulbs that you could plant now in November. Keep in mind that sometimes after you plant bulbs, you might not see them for a year or two. It can take a little bit of time for them to get established and get growing. I planted more leucojums in my front yard last year and I didn't see them at all. And I'm really hopeful that this year they'll start popping up. So don't lose hope. And it's really easy to forget that you planted them too. And they can surprise you. Keep in mind that bulbs that you may think of from northern gardens don't thrive here. Things like tulips, crocus, and hyacinths. If you want to grow those plants, you have to keep the bulbs in the fridge for about 8 weeks. Get them now, put them in the fridge for about 8 weeks, and then plant them out in the ground. And they will only bloom one time this spring, pretty much. And they won't bloom again unless you dig them up in the fall and put them in the fridge again, because it just doesn't get cold enough here for them to bloom. So try some of the other ones like the leucojums, iphions, rain lilies, and Dutch irises. And there's plenty more, and I'll always touch on which ones to plant at which time of year in this podcast. What's going on in the vegetable garden? Again, early November is time for planting all your cool season veg, like arugula, Asian greens like bok choy, beets, carrots, chard, mustard, turnips, lettuce, radishes, leeks, collards, and spinach. All of them can be planted by sowing seeds directly into the soil. Add some compost to the soil and then plant your cool season crops, and they'll live through the cold this winter. For some of the greens, it's a really good idea to do a successive planting plan so you never run out. So plant some like once a week or once every 2 weeks. So there's always some new ones growing up. And as you harvest the old ones, you've got newer ones that are basically maturing. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, and cabbages can be planted in the garden as small plants now. I just got some radicchio plants. Radicchio is an Italian green that I really like. I got there's two kinds that I got. One makes a little head and it's purple and white. And the other kind doesn't make a head and it's more like a dandelion. And those are the kind of things that I like to focus on in my garden. I like to grow unusual vegetables that you can't find at the store. I think that it's really fun, keeps my appetite peaked. November is your last chance to plant garlic as individual cloves. There's many unusual types of garlic that you can grow that are available at the local nursery. For example, I've grown some in the past that had kind of purple stripes on their skins. That's really fun. You can also grab some regular garlic from the grocery store as long as it's organic and just break that head into individual cloves and just plant them pointy side up, and those will grow too. They have to be organic because some of the non-organic garlic is treated with chemicals that prevent it from growing so that it doesn't sprout when it's on its way to the grocery store. So they won't sprout if you plant them in the garden. Now is the time to start any kind of onion from seed too. And onions are a lot of fun to grow. I particularly like harvesting them early in the spring for spring onions. And I'll definitely talk about that in future episodes. Now, something that I always forget is that November is a good time for planting strawberries. They are cool season plants, but most gardeners don't think of planting them now. And if you plant them now, they'll get really well established. You can give them a lot of feeding. They actually need fertilizer, unlike all of the other plants I've talked about. um, they are heavy feeders. They like a lot of compost and they like gentle fertilizing. Nothing too strong. Try to stay organic with relatively low numbers, like below 10 on your bag of fertilizer or your bottle of fertilizer. And they like very well drained soil. That's really important for them. It's hard for them to grow in clay. So if you have clay soil like I do, they do better in raised beds and containers. And of course, a classic choice, a strawberry pot. And I think I'm going to do some here coming up because strawberries are my favorite food and they are incredible fresh from the garden. They're so much better than what you get at the store. So I'll say it again, get ready for freezing weather that could come as early as November 15th, which with the weather we've been having is really hard to believe, but true. In Austin, our first average freeze is about December 1st. Keeping the soil moist and keeping the plants fully hydrated is crucial to success in the fall and winter vegetable garden. With the extreme drought and heat we've been experiencing, make sure you keep your new veggies well watered to get them established before freezes arrive. If freezing weather creeps up on us and surprises us, water your plants the day before the freeze is expected to make sure they're fully hydrated. Watering the plants is even more important than covering them. And that's because if you can imagine an ice cube tray, and you take an ice cube tray and you put it in your freezer, if you took an ice cube tray that's half full of water, it's going to freeze faster than an ice cube tray that's full of water. Less water freezes faster than a greater quantity of water. So if your plants have more water inside of them and they are fully hydrated, it will take longer for that water inside the plants to freeze and damage the plants. So keep them fully hydrated. That's really important because if they're dehydrated at all, they will freeze faster and they'll get damaged. What's going on in the herb garden? Start cool season annual herbs like cutting celery, cilantro, parsley, dill, chamomile, feverfew, calendula, and fennel. And all of those can be planted directly into the soil with seeds, or you can get small plants and plant them now. All of those plants are plants that will just live through one season this fall and winter, and then they'll go to seed and they'll die next spring when it gets hot. All of those plants will thrive this winter if you provide them with some cover during freezes and keep them fully hydrated before a freeze. Some of our very cold hardy perennial herbs like mint, lemon balm, garlic chives, multiplying onions, monarda, catnip, and winter savory can all be planted now as small plants. Avoid planting the more delicate Mediterranean herbs like oregano, thyme, and rosemary because they sometimes can be killed in hard freezes if they're not well established. So because it's almost winter time, those plants might not have time to get established. And then if we get a hard freeze, they're real vulnerable and that can kill them. So if you have them on hand already, go ahead and put them in the ground. But if you don't have them, wait until spring to plant those Mediterranean herbs. Okay, now a little bit about lawn care. If you're still caring for a lawn, it's going dormant now. Make sure you keep those tree leaves off of the lawn. All right, it's really important to rake leaves off the lawn or run them over with a lawnmower to chop them up. If you let the leaves sit on the grass, they will shade the grass and kill it this winter. And that is a really common way that lawns become patchy or thin. So make sure that you get those leaves off of your turf grass. And November is a really good time to start the design process for removing lawn and replacing it with trees, perennials, and other beneficial plants. So make an appointment with me to learn how to approach a big project like that at atxgardens.com. And really any kind of design overhaul that you're thinking of, November is a really good time to get that process started because you can do all your designing and thinking and planning during the winter. You can do some bed prep at the end of the winter, and then you'll be ready for planting in spring. You don't want to wait until spring to start planning. Now, November is also time to plant cool season annuals like pansies, violas, snapdragons, sweet peas, and cyclamen. Dianthus and their cousins, the carnations, are nice additions to the winter garden, and their flowers are edible. And snapdragons tend to be resistant to deer if you're gardening in a deer-infested area. Okay, wildflowers. If you missed the window for planting wildflowers from seed, which November is getting a little late for planting from seed, you can plant them now as tiny plants or from live roots. Sometimes you can find bluebonnets, lemon horse mint, and firewheels, and sometimes evening primrose and mealy blue sage and stuff like that at the nurseries right now and through the winter in 6-packs and 4-inch pots. So look for those. They're kind of hard to find sometimes, but occasionally you'll see them at the nurseries. Native American Seed sells live roots of certain wildflowers and native grasses. I recommend Texas bluegrass that I got from them as live roots. It's a cool season ornamental grass that is rare and very beautiful. I really recommend it, and it can grow in light shade too, or full sun. It's really great. I have it in the shade at my house under the persimmon tree I was just telling you about. I have a bunch of events and classes coming up, and of course, all y'all are invited. Speaking of Native American Seed, they are one of the sponsors of the Seeding Hope Fall Festival fundraiser for Central Texas Seed Savers. Saturday, November 1st at Green Sleeves Nursery in Pflugerville. Nessa from Microlife and Jay from Texas Gardener Magazine will be speaking, and I'm putting together a very special speech about how seed sharing changes the world and our lives. Tickets are $26 and include food and drink. Purchase tickets at atxgardens.com. All the proceeds go to Central Texas Seed Savers, an organization that I founded that is preventing extinction of our special Central Texas plants through seed sharing. Okay, then the following week, on Saturday, November 8th, Central Texas Seed Savers is holding our big annual seed swap at the Austin Public Library central location downtown. It's always tons of fun, and I look forward to it every year. This year, we're holding it in the gallery of the library, which is new, and I'm sure it's going to be delightful. Join us between 11 and 1. Bring any seeds you have to share, whether they're packaged commercial seeds or still attached to twigs from your garden. Even if you don't have any seeds to share, just come and join us. It's really fun. We always have tons of seeds available, so come on and get some. All are welcome. The event is free and you don't need to register. Then on Monday, November 17th, Williamson County Master Gardeners are hosting their monthly meeting, which starts at 6:30, and I will be presenting on tree planting and proper tree planting techniques. So, of course, some more information about all of those fun events will be available on my website at atxgardens.com. So that wraps up today's episode. Don't forget to check the show notes for links to tools, plants, and events that I mentioned. And if you're enjoying my podcast, please share with a fellow gardener. It really helps more Central Texans to find the show. Okay, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to the ATX Gardens podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please follow, rate, and share it with your fellow Central Texas gardeners. For show notes, tools, and to book a consultation, visit atxgardens.com. Happy gardening, and I'll see you next time.